What happens when a $5 million scene goes up in smoke in the blink of an eye? Imagine standing under bright studio lights, cameras rolling, crew waiting, millions of dollars on the line, and suddenly, it all falls apart. That's exactly what happened to Meghan Markle on the set of a high-profile cameo that promised to be one of the biggest moments of her career. A single forgotten line, a missed beat, and what was supposed to be a flawless, career-defining moment spiraled into chaos. But the story doesn't end there. Behind the cameras, tensions flared, egos collided, and a director named Jason Orley made a decision that would shock everyone on set, and soon, the world watching. From the very first second, this was a scenario no one could predict. Meghan Markle, accustomed to headlines, red carpets, and Hollywood cameras, found herself in unfamiliar territory. The raw, unforgiving world of set discipline, where perfection isn't optional. It's demanded. And this wasn't just any cameo. This was a $5 million scene. Millions, not just for screen time, but for reputation, leverage, and the kind of publicity that can pivot a career. Forgetting a line here wasn't a small slip-up. It was a catastrophe, a moment that could unravel carefully crafted narratives, strain relationships with a notoriously exacting director, and ignite rumors that would spread faster than wildfire across Hollywood tabloids. Let's pause and ask, have you ever been in a situation where one small mistake felt like it could ruin everything? Where the world seemed to be watching, and there was no room for error? That's exactly the pressure Meghan faced. And the stakes were higher than most of us can imagine. Not only was this a financial investment, $5 million on the line for a cameo that would appear for just a few minutes, but it was also a test of professional credibility. Could a celebrity of her stature withstand the scrutiny of a director with zero tolerance for mistakes, a crew that watched every move, and a production schedule that allowed no room for error? Even before the cameras rolled that fateful day, whispers of tension had already circulated. Sources on set hinted at subtle disagreements, minor clashes, and quiet frustrations that had been simmering just beneath the surface. Meghan, always confident in public appearances, was reportedly nervous. Behind her polished smile and poised exterior, there were signs of stress, the kind that only emerges when millions of dollars, your reputation, and career momentum converge into one moment. The irony here is thick. The very fame and experience that were supposed to give her an edge might have been what made this cameo so fragile. Hollywood is not forgiving. Perfection is demanded, and every misstep is magnified. Now, picture the scene. Cameras poised, lights glaring, the set alive with anticipation. Crew members held their breath. Extras in place. Every single element meticulously coordinated. And then it happened. Meghan stumbled over a line, freezing just long enough for everyone to feel the tension spike. A heartbeat passed, 2, maybe 3, and the director, Jason Orley, did what he is famously known for. He made an immediate, uncompromising decision. The scene was cut, just like that. Millions of dollars of potential content gone. The crew's murmurs turned into audible sighs. And Meghan? She reportedly lost composure entirely. Screaming, pleading, flustered. A meltdown that would later be described by insiders as unforgettable and career-defining for reasons she never intended. At this point, you might be thinking, surely this is an exaggeration. After all, celebrities forget lines all the time. But the context is everything. The combination of an exorbitant $5 million scene, a director with a zero-tolerance policy, and Meghan's heightened public profile created a perfect storm. Every single eye on set was watching. Every pause, every flub, magnified. It wasn't just a forgotten line. It was the spark that ignited a series of reactions that no one anticipated. And it didn't stop at the set. Reports suggest that once the cameras stopped rolling, the chaos escalated. Crew members whispered, assistants fumed, and the director's reputation for discipline became a focal point. Suddenly, a cameo was no longer just a cameo. It was a story of Hollywood pressure, personal stakes, and a public figure facing an unexpected vulnerability. Here's a question for you. How do you think the world would react if one of the most high-profile figures in Hollywood publicly lost control under pressure? The answer, it turns out, was as dramatic as you might imagine. Social media began buzzing almost instantly, with rumors of the scene cut, whispers of Meghan's meltdown, and speculation about whether she could recover professionally. Tabloid outlets had a feast, analysts debated, and Hollywood insiders waited for fallout. But while the outside world speculated, the inside story, the real story, was far more intricate, emotionally charged, and unexpected. It's here, in this high-pressure, high-stakes environment, that we begin to understand the full gravity of the incident. Meghan Markle's $5 million cameo was supposed to be a testament to her influence, her talent, and her ability to command attention on a global stage. Instead, it became a microcosm of the pressures celebrities face, magnified to a level few of us can comprehend. Forgetting a line wasn't just an error. It was a collision of money, ego, and public expectation. And Jason Orley's cut? That was a calculated move that not only protected the integrity of the project, but also sent a message about accountability, one that would reverberate far beyond the set. Yet, the drama didn't end with the cut itself. What came next? Meghan's reaction, the whispered tensions, and the escalating media coverage added layers of complexity that no one could have predicted. How did a single scene, a brief cameo, generate a controversy so massive it dominated headlines? How does a moment intended to showcase success transform into a story of chaos and panic? And most importantly, what does this reveal about the fragility of celebrity, the power of perception, and the consequences of public missteps? Throughout this video, we'll peel back each layer of this incident. From the exact moment Meghan froze on set to the director's decision to cut her scene, from the crew's reactions to the ensuing media frenzy, we'll examine the chain reaction that turned a $5 million cameo into a headline-making drama. You'll hear about the insider details, the surprising twists, and the emotional beats that most people never saw. And by the end, you'll have a full picture of why this incident wasn't just a celebrity mishap. It was a lesson in pressure, stakes, and the unpredictability of fame. But even as we dive into these details, remember, this story is not just about Meghan Markle forgetting a line. It's about human reaction under extreme pressure, the complex dynamics of Hollywood sets, and the ripple effects of a single decision. It's about money, ego, and the way public perception can amplify even the smallest misstep into a global spectacle. And as you watch, consider this. If you were in her shoes, could you have handled it differently? Or would the same pressure, same expectations, same scrutiny have broken even the most composed among us? The stakes, the tension, and the drama only intensify from here. What happened after the cameras stopped rolling is a story of confrontation, unexpected decisions, and a chain of events that would ripple far beyond the studio. Crew members, insiders, and the director himself would all play a role in a narrative that's as much about personal stakes as it is about cinematic storytelling. And while the public only saw glimpses, the reality behind the scenes is a masterclass in tension, drama, and high-stakes decision-making. So buckle up. Over the next hour, we'll unpack every detail of this $5 million cameo gone wrong. We'll explore the build-up, the meltdown, the decisions, and the fallout. From the tense silence on set to the heated exchanges, from the director's uncompromising stance to the media frenzy that followed, every moment contributes to a story that is as captivating as it is instructive. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just what happened, but why it mattered, and why even the smallest misstep can have enormous consequences in the world of high-stakes celebrity work. $5 million. That's the figure that hung over Meghan Markle's head like a guillotine the moment she stepped onto the set. $5 million for a cameo that would appear on screen for less than 3 minutes. For most people, that number is incomprehensible. For Hollywood insiders, it's a contract that carries not just financial weight, but reputation, leverage, and immense pressure. And for Meghan, it wasn't just money, it was validation. Proof that she could command a scene, regardless of the public's scrutiny, the tabloids' gaze, or the critics waiting to pounce. Imagine arriving on a set where every single detail has been orchestrated to perfection. The lights are positioned just so, reflecting perfectly off the set's props. Camera operators are crouched, lenses ready to capture every blink, every subtle expression. Assistants hover quietly, knowing the slightest mistake could ripple across the production. Extras, background actors, even the catering staff sense the tension. They know they're in the presence of a celebrity whose every move could be scrutinized and broadcast. And then, there's the director. Jason Orley isn't just any director. He's known in the industry as a perfectionist, someone who doesn't tolerate mistakes, who believes that a single flub can destroy the integrity of a scene. And he's watching. Every movement, every glance, every breath. Meghan walked onto the set, exuding confidence, or at least the appearance of it. Her team had prepped her for weeks. Lines memorized, gestures perfected, emotions calibrated. Yet even the most seasoned stars feel it. That subtle, simmering pressure that whispers in the back of your mind, reminding you that millions of dollars, reputations, and public opinion all rest on your shoulders. And this cameo was more than just a check. It was a statement. For Meghan, it was a moment to assert herself, to show the world she was more than the sum of headlines, tabloid stories, and scandalous narratives. She was a star, and this scene was her stage. Yet the higher the stakes, the more fragile the performance. Industry insiders had been whispering about tension on set for days leading up to the shoot. Minor disagreements between Meghan and production staff. Subtle eye rolls from the assistant director. Crew members noting her anxiety in private moments. Nothing overt, nothing public, but the energy on set was taut, like a violin string pulled to its breaking point. And then it happened. The cameras started rolling. The lights flared. The boom microphones hovered just above her head. Every crew member froze into a state of alert anticipation. The first line came, delivered smoothly. The second line? Hesitation. A pause that lasted just a fraction too long. But in this environment, fractions count. Her mind blanked. The rehearsed words she had drilled endlessly refused to surface. And just like that, the entire room felt the shift. Silence descended. Even the humming of the lights seemed louder. Jason Orley didn't flinch. He had seen it before. And in his world, hesitation equals failure. In Hollywood, especially in high-stakes projects, perfection isn't optional, it's demanded. A momentary lapse can cost millions, and with this cameo, those millions were literal. $5 million worth of content, authority, and credibility all depended on flawless delivery. The crew murmured. An assistant whispered a line, hoping to save her. But the damage was done. Meghan's expression shifted from concentration to panic, her eyes widening as she realized the magnitude of her mistake. Every heartbeat amplified in her chest. Every breath felt louder than it should. And behind her, Orley made a decision that would define the moment. He cut the scene. The cut wasn't just a technical maneuver. It was a statement, one that immediately changed the dynamics on set. A $5 million scene gone. Literally gone. Gone from the footage, gone from potential marketing, gone from the story that had been carefully designed to showcase Meghan in a high-profile, influential light. And for Meghan, the repercussions were immediate. The meltdown, as insiders later described, was unforgettable. Screams, frantic gestures, pacing across the set. Staff tried to calm her. Her assistants tried to reason. But the weight of the lost scene, the lost opportunity, and the public eye that would inevitably scrutinize every move created a perfect storm. Everyone on set felt it. Tension radiated from Meghan like heat off a stove, simmering until it became uncontrollable. You might think $5 million is just a number. But in Hollywood, it's a measure of trust, skill, and reputation. Lose a scene like that, and it's not just money at stake, it's credibility. Directors talk. Crew members talk. Agents and PR teams talk. The industry notices when a star falters. And while some would shrug off a minor flub, Meghan's position made the stakes enormous. She was under the microscope, watched by everyone from her own team to journalists waiting for the slightest misstep to turn into a headline. Let's take a moment to consider the pressure. $5 million. Cameras rolling. Crew watching. A perfectionist director. Your career reputation. Public perception. And one line, forgotten in a fraction of a second. It's a pressure cooker, a scenario most of us can only imagine. But for Meghan, it was very real. Every gesture, every pause, every misstep had consequences far beyond the room she was in. But the tension didn't stop with the cut. The aftermath was just as intense. Crew members whispered behind her back. Social media would explode within hours, once insiders or leaks reported the incident. Hollywood insiders would speculate, agents would panic, and PR teams would strategize damage control. A cameo that was supposed to elevate Meghan's profile had suddenly become a cautionary tale of nerves, perfectionism, and high stakes. And yet, what most people don't know is that the $5 million scene was only the surface. Beneath the surface, tensions had been building for weeks. Disagreements about script changes, clashing visions between director and star, minor snubs, eye rolls, subtle digs that created an invisible pressure so heavy it would break anyone at the wrong moment. Meghan's meltdown wasn't just about a forgotten line. It was the culmination of weeks of stress, expectation, and invisible conflict, all converging in a single explosive moment. Have you ever been in a situation where everything depended on one tiny detail, one moment of performance, one chance to get it right? That's the world of high-stakes Hollywood. It's brutal, unforgiving, and public. Every misstep is amplified, every moment scrutinized, and every reaction analyzed. And for Meghan Markle, the stakes were magnified exponentially. The irony is brutal. A scene meant to showcase her influence, skill, and star power ended up becoming a story about fragility under pressure. And yet, it's human. It's raw. It's dramatic. And it's exactly why this incident captured so much attention. Because it wasn't just about a cameo. It was about the collision of fame, money, expectation, and the human tendency to falter under impossible pressure. So as we move forward, remember this. The $5 million cameo wasn't just a financial investment. It was a test of composure, talent, and ability to perform under the world's gaze. The cut scene, the reaction, the fallout, it all ties into a larger story about Hollywood, power, and vulnerability. And while the cameras may have stopped rolling, the story was far from over. Behind the studio doors, the drama was just beginning, and what happened next would shock even those who thought they knew Meghan Markle. She froze. The words that had been rehearsed 100 times vanished in an instant. Cameras rolled. The crew held their collective breath. For a moment, it was as if time itself had paused on the set. What seemed like a simple $5 million cameo had instantly transformed into a high-stakes drama that no one, not even Meghan Markle herself, had anticipated. And in that moment, the fragile veneer of composure shattered. Picture the scene. Bright studio lights cast harsh glows on the set, bouncing off carefully positioned props, highlighting the pristine costumes and meticulously arranged background. The director, Jason Orley, stood near the camera, a clipboard in hand, eyes sharp and calculating. He had a reputation for being merciless, and the crew had learned early that a single misstep could earn a scene cut, or worse, professional scorn. The assistants flitted nervously, holding props and whispering cues, hoping to keep the machine running smoothly. Everyone knew the stakes, yet no one could predict how quickly a small lapse could snowball into full-blown chaos. Meghan's first line was delivered flawlessly. A confident smile, a subtle gesture, the kind of poise that had earned her millions and millions in endorsements and cameos before. But as the second line approached, something changed. Her eyes darted, searching for the words she had drilled endlessly. A pause, a flicker of panic. Her mind, which had been so prepared, seemed suddenly blank. That pause, just a fraction of a second, almost imperceptible, carried the weight of 1,000 potential consequences. The crew felt it immediately. The lights seemed brighter. The microphones, hovering silently above her head, captured every inhalation, every small movement. You could almost hear the tension snapping like a taut wire. And in that quiet, a director's instinct took over. Jason Orley, known for his precision and intolerance for mistakes, didn't hesitate. He had seen it before, and he knew exactly what needed to be done. The scene was over. Cut. Just like that, $5 million worth of potential footage was gone. But the financial impact was only the beginning. The human impact was immediate and explosive. Meghan reportedly went from controlled poise to visible panic in seconds. Screaming, pacing, frantically gesturing. Crew members later described the moment as chaotic and unforgettable. For someone accustomed to red carpets and carefully staged public appearances, this kind of uncontrolled vulnerability was unprecedented. The cameras might have stopped rolling, but the emotional storm had just begun. Gesture was scrutinized, every facial expression cataloged, every whispered reaction from the assistants, co-stars, and crew added fuel to the fire. And yet, there was irony in the chaos. Here was a celebrity, adored by millions, who had navigated Hollywood's most ruthless stages, yet she found herself undone by a moment that, on the surface, seemed so minor. But in high-stakes environments, minor errors have major consequences. Forgetting a line wasn't just a flub. It was a domino, the first in a series that would topple reputations, escalate tensions, and create a storm far beyond the studio walls. The crew tried to intervene. Quiet suggestions, gentle reminders, a whispered line or two to salvage the scene. But the momentum had already shifted. The fragility of the moment left Meghan on edge, and the more the crew attempted to help, the more tense the atmosphere became. Orley's decision had already set a precedent. In this environment, mistakes would be met with immediate correction, and the cost of failure was clear. For Meghan, the psychological pressure intensified with every passing second, each tick of the clock magnifying the stakes. And while this was happening on set, there were observers just outside the room, people whose influence extended far beyond the studio. Agents, PR strategists, and close associates waited in quiet tension, knowing that this moment could define headlines, social media chatter, and career perception. Every second of Meghan's reaction could be dissected, analyzed, and used to fuel narratives, both positive and negative. The set itself became a microcosm of Hollywood scrutiny. One pause, one flub, one emotional reaction could cascade into a public relations crisis. The psychological dynamics at play were fascinating. Meghan's panic wasn't just fear of failure. It was fear of visibility, of judgment, of losing control in a world that thrives on control. Hollywood is obsessed with perfection, and perfection is performative. Every actor, every crew member, every director knows the pressure. But for someone like Meghan Markle, whose public image is meticulously curated, a loss of control is especially acute. The cameras may not have captured the moment yet, but everyone present did. And they felt the weight of the stakes as much as she did. As Meghan's panic escalated, the scene's financial implications became a reality. $5 million might have been allocated for this cameo, but with the cut, it was at risk. Reshoots were expensive, schedules were tight, and studio executives were watching. The ripple effects extended far beyond the immediate chaos, threatening contracts, marketing plans, and even Meghan's standing in Hollywood. Every actor on set understood. This was a high-stakes game, and losing a scene could mean more than just money. It could mean credibility lost, influence diminished, and opportunities jeopardized. But what made this moment unforgettable wasn't just the monetary or professional consequences. It was the human element. Meghan's reaction revealed vulnerability, raw emotion, and the psychological pressure that even the most experienced celebrities can face. Observers described the scene as tense, almost cinematic, with every pause and gesture amplified by the high-stakes environment. For the crew and director, it was a challenge. For Meghan, it was a test of composure, a trial by fire under the watchful eyes of an industry that tolerates no mistakes. And while the immediate aftermath was controlled chaos, the story doesn't end there. What unfolded in the minutes and hours following the cut was a cascade of reactions, decisions, and subtle conflicts that set the stage for an even larger drama. Crew members whispered. Assistants scrambled to mitigate damage. Social media, of course, was a ticking time bomb, ready to explode once details leaked. And the director, Jason Orley, had made his stance clear. In this environment, accountability is everything, and there are consequences for failure. At this moment, one question loomed over the set. How would Meghan recover from this? Could she regain composure, reshoot, and maintain her professional reputation? Or would this moment define the scene, the cameo, and perhaps even her standing in Hollywood for months to come? The tension was palpable, the stakes astronomical, and the uncertainty complete. It was a perfect storm, a convergence of money, ego, expectation, and human frailty, all captured in a single, unforgettable pause. As the lights dimmed and the cameras stopped rolling, the chaos didn't subside. Meghan's meltdown left a mark on everyone present. The crew's whispered reactions, the director's glare, and the assistant's frantic interventions created a tense energy that lingered long after the scene was cut. What had been a brief cameo transformed into a case study in pressure, vulnerability, and high-stakes drama. And just when it seemed the tension had reached its peak, insiders hint that the drama was only beginning. Whispers of leaked information, unconfirmed reports, and the inevitable social media frenzy hinted that the $5 million scene cut would ripple far beyond the studio. It wasn't just about forgetting a line. It was about perception, credibility, and the fragile nature of fame when everything depends on a single moment. Jason Orley is not a man who hesitates. On the set of this high-profile cameo, he didn't have to. One moment, Meghan Markle was poised, the next she froze, and in that instant, millions of dollars, countless hours of planning, and weeks of anticipation hung in the balance. And Orley's reputation demanded immediate action. He was a director known for exacting standards, for cutting scenes without remorse, for placing the integrity of the story above the comfort of any actor, regardless of fame, pedigree, or public pressure. To him, a flub was not a personal attack. It was a professional failure, and in the world he commanded, failures were not negotiable. Imagine being in his shoes. Cameras rolling, crew waiting, assistants frozen mid-step, and a lead actor, the center of public fascination, suddenly unable to deliver. What do? Hesitate, and risk losing both the momentum of the shoot and the narrative coherence of your project? Or act decisively, demonstrating that no one, no matter how famous, is immune to accountability? Orley chose the latter. The scene was cut. Just like that, $5 million evaporated from the schedule, the storyboard, and Meghan's meticulously planned cameo. But what made this decision so dramatic wasn't just the money. It was the message. Orley's cut was a statement to everyone on set, a clear signal that discipline, preparation, and execution were paramount. Forgetting a line was not merely a small slip. It was a breach of contract with professionalism, a crack in the facade of control that celebrities often rely upon to maintain authority over a set. And Meghan, accustomed to adoration and deference, suddenly confronted a reality where her status offered no protection. Sources on set later described the director's demeanor as calm, almost coldly clinical. He didn't shout. He didn't scold. He simply made the decision. Cut. Move on. But that single word carried an enormous weight. For Meghan, it was an emotional earthquake. For the crew, it was a lesson in hierarchy and authority. And for the production as a whole, it was a reminder that perfection isn't optional. It's demanded, and the consequences of failure are immediate and unavoidable. Have you ever watched someone's career pivot on a single moment? That's what happened here. Orley's cut didn't just remove a scene. It disrupted a chain of events, a sequence of expectations meticulously planned over weeks. The filming schedule was tight. Crew members had coordinated shots down to the second. Lighting, sound, and camera angles were calibrated for perfection. Any reshoot would be expensive, time-consuming, and potentially disruptive to other scenes. And for Meghan, the stakes were even higher. A cameo designed to cement her Hollywood credibility had just been derailed. The tension on set escalated instantly. Meghan's panic transformed into visible frustration, which, in turn, triggered nervous energy among the crew. Assistants scrambled to salvage the moment, whispering lines, adjusting props, and attempting to calm the atmosphere. Yet Orley remained unflinching. The scene was gone, and his decision stood. In that instant, authority and artistic control won over celebrity privilege. But Orley's decision was also strategic. Cutting the scene didn't just address the immediate problem of a forgotten line. It sent a message to everyone. Professionalism is non-negotiable. Forgetting a line is human, but in a production where every second, every expression, every pause is calculated, human errors cannot be tolerated without consequence. The cut preserved the overall integrity of the project, maintained the timeline, and ensured that the narrative cohesion of the story remained intact. For Orley, this was not personal. It was business. What made the moment even more tense was the underlying psychology at play. Meghan Markle was not just an actor on set. She was a public figure whose every move could become headline news. Losing composure in front of the crew was one thing. Losing composure in a scenario that could leak to social media was an entirely different level of pressure. The stakes were compounded by her own expectations, the the meticulous preparation by her team, and the invisible gaze of Hollywood observers who would inevitably scrutinize her reaction. Every second of panic, every gesture, every flustered attempt to recover was being watched, recorded in memory, and later dissected. And yet, there was irony in Orley's method. By cutting the scene, he removed the immediate problem, but he also amplified the drama. The crew witnessed the emotional unraveling of a celebrity, the assistants grappled with the aftermath, and the narrative of a meltdown began to take shape. It's a paradox. By preserving the integrity of the project, Orley inadvertently set the stage for a separate, more personal story to unfold, one that involved tension, vulnerability, and the raw human response to pressure. Consider the environment. Sets are tense places under normal circumstances. Add millions of dollars, a celebrity cameo, a perfectionist director, and the expectation of flawless performance, and you have a pressure cooker. Everyone on set understands the rules. Discipline, precision, and accountability are paramount. Orley's decision reinforced that principle. It wasn't punitive, it was corrective. And yet, the emotional fallout was immediate and dramatic. Meghan's visible frustration, the whispers among crew members, and the tension in the air created a charged environment that no one could ignore. Have you ever witnessed someone lose control under pressure? It's fascinating to watch. Emotions rise. Gestures exaggerate. The air seems heavier. And in this case, the emotional spike was magnified because of the stakes. A $5 million scene, a high-profile star, and a director who refuses to compromise. The dynamic between authority and vulnerability was on full display, revealing not just the mechanics of filmmaking but the raw, human experience of stress and expectation. Then there's the strategic aspect. Orley's cut was not merely reactive, it was anticipatory. He knew that a public meltdown, if it escalated, could jeopardize the scene, the project, and even the schedule for the entire production. By taking decisive action, he aimed to contain the problem before it spiraled further. Yet, the decision had consequences. Meghan's reaction became more intense. Rumors began to form, and the narrative of a meltdown started to gain traction, even as the director tried to maintain control behind the scenes. This interplay between action and reaction, cause and effect, created a fascinating dynamic. On one hand, the director maintained authority and control. On the other hand, the emotional intensity of the moment began to ripple through the set, affecting everyone present. Crew members whispered in corners. Assistants tried to anticipate her next move. Even other actors, observing from a distance, adjusted their own behavior. The cut scene, meant to preserve order, inadvertently fueled a separate drama. The story of a celebrity's vulnerability, amplified in real time by those witnessing it firsthand. And then, there's the human element. Orley's decision, while professional and calculated, confronted Meghan with an undeniable truth. Fame and talent do not exempt anyone from accountability. Forgetting a line, even a small one, can have immediate consequences when millions of dollars, a director's reputation, and public perception converge in a single moment. For Meghan, this was a collision of ego, expectation, and reality. She was a star, yet in that instance, she was also human. And the human reaction, panic, frustration, visible distress, was exactly what made the moment unforgettable. But Orley's decision did more than preserve the integrity of the project. It set in motion a chain of events that would ripple far beyond the studio. Crew members would talk. Insiders would leak stories. Social media would explode. Headlines would form. And while the director's cut was a professional decision, it inadvertently became the catalyst for a larger narrative, one about fame, vulnerability, and the complex dynamics between celebrity and authority. The $5 million scene may have disappeared in seconds, but its impact lingered. It wasn't just about the money lost or the scene cut. It was about the human response, the tension, and the unfolding drama that would soon dominate headlines. And while Orley remained calm and collected, the energy on set was electric, charged with anticipation, tension, and the unpredictable consequences of celebrity behavior under pressure. Screaming, pacing, frantically gesturing. The calm, polished Meghan Markle that everyone expected had vanished in an instant. What was supposed to be a controlled, career-defining $5 million cameo had erupted into chaos. The moment the scene was cut, the air on set shifted. You could feel it, tension thick enough to slice with a knife, the kind that makes even seasoned crew members step back, uncertain how to intervene without making the situation worse. The first reaction was shock. Meghan's assistants, trained to anticipate and mitigate crises, tried to regain control. They whispered lines, reminded her of camera angles, and attempted to redirect her focus. But the energy on set had already shifted. Cameras were paused, crew members froze mid-step, and Jason Orley's calm authority stood in stark contrast to the storm brewing around him. Every movement, every shout, every flailing gesture magnified the drama, creating a moment that insiders would later describe as cinematic and unforgettable. It wasn't just the cut scene that triggered the meltdown. It was the culmination of weeks of pressure, preparation, and expectation. Meghan had arrived on set with rehearsed lines, polished gestures, and a confidence that, under normal circumstances, would have carried her through any performance. Yet the pressure of the $5 million cameo, combined with the director's zero-tolerance approach, created a perfect storm. One small lapse, a forgotten line, was all it took to trigger a cascade of emotional responses. Have you ever seen someone crack under pressure, even when they're supposed to be at their best? That's exactly what happened. Meghan's panic was immediate. Her voice rose, her gestures became more erratic, and her pacing accelerated. Crew members attempted subtle interventions, but nothing could contain the emotional surge. The meltdown wasn't just loud. It was layered with frustration, fear, and disbelief. She had trained, rehearsed, and prepared for this moment, yet the human element had betrayed her. The irony was palpable. A woman who had navigated royal scrutiny, global media attention, and countless public appearances suddenly found herself vulnerable in front of a small but influential group of people. And the stakes were higher than most could imagine. $5 million was on the line, not just as a figure in a contract, but as a measure of credibility, influence, and professional standing. Forgetting a line was no longer just a mistake. It was a public display of vulnerability in a space that allowed no room for error. Inside the chaos, Jason Orley remained calm. For him, this was a test of discipline. He didn't intervene verbally. He didn't attempt to soothe or pacify. He had made his decision, and in his mind, professionalism demanded that it stand. The tension between the two, the panic of the celebrity and the calm authority of the director, was palpable. Crew members later described the moment as surreal, a clash between raw emotion and calculated control, a high-stakes drama playing out before their eyes. And then came the whispers. Assistants, worried about the escalating energy, attempted to speak to Meghan privately, suggesting that a reshoot might be possible, that the scene could be salvaged. But panic has a way of amplifying emotion rather than containing it. Every suggestion, no matter how practical, seemed to fuel the storm. The pacing quickened. Gestures became sharper. Words were flung with a mixture of desperation and anger. The $5 million cameo had become a stage for a very human breakdown. The psychological dimensions of this meltdown are worth noting. Under extreme pressure, the human brain can respond in unpredictable ways. Meghan had memorized lines, rehearsed gestures, and prepared for the scrutiny of millions. But when faced with the immediate loss of a scene, the collapse of perfection, and the public eye, even if only indirectly via potential leaks, the response was instinctual: fight, flight, or panic. And in this case, panic dominated. Crew members who had worked with high-profile stars before noted that they had never witnessed such an intense reaction. Screams, rapid movement across the set, and visible signs of frustration combined to create an atmosphere that made everyone uneasy. The director's authority, while a stabilizing factor, also intensified the emotion, creating a tension-filled feedback loop that seemed to heighten every reaction. Imagine the cameras paused, crew members frozen, assistants whispering, and a director standing firm in his decision. Now add the emotional weight of a $5 million cameo, the visibility of a public figure, and the personal stakes for Meghan. The result is a perfect storm of chaos, pressure, and emotional intensity. Every heartbeat seemed amplified. Every gesture had consequence. Every word, every misstep, could ripple far beyond the walls of the studio. And yet, even in the middle of this emotional tempest, there was irony. A cameo meant to showcase influence, talent, and star power had become a study in human vulnerability, a moment revealing the fragility behind celebrity poise. Insiders would later describe it as a masterclass in pressure dynamics, a rare glimpse at how the collision of fame, money, and professional expectation can create explosive outcomes. As the meltdown escalated, crew members began documenting subtle details. How her hands trembled when she gestured, the rising pitch of her voice, the rapid movement across the stage. Every reaction was cataloged in real time, not just for internal observation, but because in Hollywood, these moments rarely remain private. Social media, whispers, and leaks transform personal breakdowns into public spectacles almost instantly. And the drama didn't stop there. Meghan's meltdown, while intense, was also complicated by layers of expectation. Her team, aware of the stakes, tried to mitigate the fallout. Lines were whispered, cameras were adjusted. Attempts to calm her were made, but the human response, once set in motion, cannot be easily reversed. The pressure cooker had reached critical mass, and for everyone on set, the energy was palpable. This was more than a celebrity flub. It was a study in human reaction, a high-stakes collision of money, reputation, and emotional intensity. It was chaos unfolding in slow motion, each second building toward an uncertain climax. And while the immediate scene was lost, the story was far from over. The crew, the director, the assistants, even Meghan herself, were now participants in a larger narrative, one of Hollywood tension, human vulnerability, and the unpredictable consequences of high-pressure environments. What started as a simple line forgotten had now escalated into a dramatic, unforgettable moment. And for Meghan, the stakes continued to climb. But just when the chaos seemed contained, the whispers began to leak. Crew members who had witnessed the meltdown started sharing snippets. Rumors began circulating, and the potential for social media exposure loomed large. Every reaction, every gesture, and every shout could become a headline, a tweet, or a story dissected by millions. The meltdown, which had begun as a private emotional response, was on the verge of becoming public spectacle. And that's when the next twist emerged, one that would escalate the drama even further, one that no one on set, not even Meghan herself, had anticipated. The cameras may have paused, the lights dimmed, and the immediate chaos of Meghan Markle's meltdown may have begun to settle. But behind the scenes, the tension was only intensifying. In Hollywood, what happens off-camera often defines the outcome far more than what is captured on film. And on this set, the $5 million cameo had become a crucible for pressure, ego, and subtle power struggles that had been simmering long before the cameras rolled. Weeks before the filming, insiders noted a series of small, almost imperceptible conflicts. Production meetings that seemed routine were anything but. Discussions about wardrobe choices became debates about authority. Script revisions led to disagreements that, on the surface, appeared minor but hinted at deeper misalignments between the star and the crew. Meghan's team pushed for certain lines to be delivered in a specific way, while Orley, a perfectionist, insisted on fidelity to his vision. Tension between creative control and celebrity influence simmered quietly, an undercurrent that set the stage for the explosive moment on set. Every crew member senses these dynamics, even if they're subtle. Assistants notice eye rolls. Camera operators pick up on clipped tones. The production designer feels the friction when choices about props or sets spark arguments. Hollywood sets, especially high-profile ones, are ecosystems of unspoken hierarchies. Power is constantly negotiated, not just between directors and actors, but across every level of production. And on this particular day, all of that invisible tension converged with the most visible celebrity on set, creating an atmosphere ripe for confrontation. The meltdown was not an isolated incident. It was the culmination of a series of small fractures. Sources close to the production revealed that Meghan had clashed with crew members over minor details in previous rehearsals, gestures, timing, even positioning in the frame. Orley, for his part, was notorious for his exacting standards. On his sets, actors either adapted or faced immediate consequences. For someone used to the deference often afforded to a high-profile star, the clash of expectations created invisible friction. Every instruction from Orley, every corrective glance, was interpreted not just as direction but as a challenge to status, a challenge Meghan had never faced in quite this direct a way. Have you ever been in an environment where every word, every action, and every pause is scrutinized, and one wrong move could escalate tensions exponentially? That's the environment Meghan found herself in, and it's one most outsiders rarely see. Hollywood sets are like pressure cookers, tight schedules, high stakes, and egos colliding in small spaces. One misstep, one hesitation, can ripple outward, affecting schedules, budgets, and even reputations. Meghan's forgotten line wasn't just a flub. It was a flashpoint in a web of long-standing tension. The crew dynamics were fascinating. Assistants, tasked with smoothing over conflicts, became intermediaries between star and director, each navigating the delicate balance of authority and loyalty. Camera operators whispered about timing and lighting adjustments, unsure if speaking up would escalate the situation or help salvage it. Even the extras, normally passive participants, picked up on the energy shift, sensing that something bigger than the cameo itself was unfolding. And yet, behind the apparent chaos, there was strategy. Orley's cutting of the scene wasn't just a reaction to a forgotten line. It was a preemptive assertion of authority. By taking decisive action, he reminded everyone, cast, crew, and star alike, that professionalism is non-negotiable. On his sets, reputation and preparation matter more than fame. And Meghan, who had built her career navigating media scrutiny and royal expectation, was encountering an environment where fame could not shield her from accountability. The emotional ripple effects were immediate. Staff members who had once treated Meghan's suggestions as requests began questioning them. Assistants worried about how the meltdown would affect their own roles, while production coordinators scrambled to adjust schedules, anticipating potential delays or reshoots. The high-profile nature of the cameo meant that even minor disruptions had major implications, both logistically and financially. And with millions of dollars on the line, the stakes could not be underestimated. The tension was not limited to professional logistics. Psychological dynamics played a huge role. Celebrities, especially those accustomed to constant public attention, operate under different pressures. When their performance falters in a high-stakes environment, vulnerability is exposed in real time. Meghan's meltdown, though brief, revealed cracks in her composure that had never been publicly seen at this scale. It was a humanizing moment, yet one fraught with professional peril. Crew members, aware of the power dynamics, had to navigate these emotions delicately, balancing support with adherence to the director's uncompromising standards. Rumors of earlier tension quickly began to circulate. Crew members recalled small arguments over props or camera angles, disagreements over line delivery, and moments where Meghan's team had attempted to assert influence in ways Orley found unacceptable. These tensions, once background noise, suddenly became magnified in the aftermath of the cut scene. Every gesture, every whispered comment, was filtered through a lens of heightened sensitivity, amplifying conflict and increasing the emotional stakes. One observer noted that sets like this operate under an unspoken rule. Hierarchy matters, and deviations are punished, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly. Orley's cut of the scene wasn't punitive. It was a recalibration. It reminded everyone that authority on set is earned through performance and preparation, not fame or status. But for Meghan, accustomed to deference and carefully managed narratives, this recalibration was jarring. She was suddenly forced to confront an environment where every action had consequence, and the rules weren't in her favor. Meanwhile, the crew's whispers began to take on a life of their own. Discussions about scheduling, reshoots, and budget implications quickly merged with speculation about Meghan's composure and reliability. Hollywood thrives on gossip, and when a high-profile celebrity is involved, even minor incidents can spiral into major narratives. Within hours, rumors about the meltdown, the cut scene, and behind-the-scenes tension would circulate online and across entertainment media, creating a feedback loop that intensified pressure and elevated stakes. And yet, despite the chaos, there was an underlying current of professionalism. Crew members, while noting the drama, also understood the challenges of working under pressure. They recognized Meghan's talent and previous successes, but in this environment, talent alone wasn't enough. Discipline, preparation, and the ability to respond under stress were equally critical. Orley's decision to cut the scene reinforced this lesson, serving as a reminder that no amount of fame exempts anyone from accountability in a high-stakes production. Have you ever experienced a situation where subtle, long-standing tensions suddenly erupted into full-blown conflict? That's what was happening here. Weeks of minor disagreements, misunderstandings, and silent frustrations converged in one explosive moment. The cut scene was just the spark. The meltdown and ensuing tension were the fire. And the aftermath would ripple far beyond the set, affecting schedules, budgets, and professional relationships in ways that no one could have predicted. Yet, what made this story truly captivating wasn't just the tension or the panic. It was the combination of high stakes, human vulnerability, and power dynamics. A $5 million cameo, a perfectionist director, and a high-profile star created a perfect storm. One mistake, one hesitation, one lapse in composure could change everything. And in the aftermath, everyone involved had to navigate the complex interplay of authority, emotion, and professional consequence. But just when it seemed the tension was contained within the studio walls, external pressures began to mount. Rumors were leaking. Insiders were talking. Social media, always hungry for drama, was on the verge of exploding with speculation. And what happened next would propel the incident into an entirely new realm of public scrutiny, revealing details that no one had anticipated and setting the stage for even greater drama. $5 million. Just saying the number aloud makes it almost incomprehensible. $5 million for a few minutes on camera, a fleeting cameo that promised exposure, prestige, and influence in equal measure. But when Jason Orley cut the scene, that massive sum didn't just vanish from the screen. It evaporated in a blink, leaving shockwaves that would ripple across the set, the studio, and Meghan Markle's career. What most people don't realize is how much more than money was at stake. This wasn't just a contractual figure. It was reputation, leverage, credibility, and the very image of a star under scrutiny. And when it disappeared, so did the security of expectation. Let's break this down. A cameo, by definition, is brief, often lasting only minutes. But in Hollywood, brevity does not equal insignificance. Every frame is meticulously planned, every gesture calibrated, and every line memorized. Producers, directors, and actors understand that even a short scene can carry enormous financial and narrative weight. In Meghan's case, this particular cameo was reportedly valued at $5 million, money not just for screen time, but for the marketability it promised, the media attention it could generate, and the influence it could reinforce. To lose it was to lose more than just footage. It was to lose credibility in front of the director, the crew, and the industry watching. The moment Jason Orley said cut, the financial implications hit immediately. Reshooting a scene isn't a simple fix. Every additional minute costs the production thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. Cameras need to be repositioned, lighting setups recalibrated, makeup and wardrobe reapplied. Crew members already operating under tight schedules are forced to stretch resources, and the clock is ticking because every delay costs money. In the blink of an eye, a carefully budgeted production becomes a logistical nightmare. And $5 million isn't just a number. It's a tangible metric of lost opportunity. But the loss was more than financial. In Hollywood, reputation is currency. Directors talk. Producers talk. Agents talk. And when a high-profile actor loses a scene, whispers start to circulate immediately. Some will frame it as a minor slip-up, understandable under pressure. Others will exaggerate, turning a brief lapse into a cautionary tale about unreliability, ego, or lack of professionalism. For Meghan Markle, who already existed under intense public scrutiny, the stakes were even higher. One forgotten line, one cut scene, and suddenly, a story that could have enhanced her career had transformed into a headline waiting to happen. Imagine being in her position. The cameras have stopped rolling, your lines have vanished into thin air, and every production member who witnessed the meltdown is now processing what just happened. Assistants whisper quietly, trying to contain the panic, But every flinch, every raised voice, every flustered movement adds fuel to the fire. Even a minor mishap becomes magnified in a high-pressure, multi-million-dollar production environment. And it doesn't stop on set. Word travels fast. In Hollywood, rumors leak almost as quickly as the camera starts rolling. Then there's the psychological toll. Money aside, losing control in front of an entire crew is humiliating. Meghan, accustomed to navigating public appearances, royal protocols, and carefully curated media narratives, found herself in a rare position, vulnerable, exposed, and reacting under pressure. Panic is contagious, and in this case, it spread like wildfire. Crew members attempted to mitigate, but the more they intervened, the more intense the emotional reaction became. This wasn't just a flub, it was a domino and a chain reaction of tension, embarrassment, and professional jeopardy. Financially, the implications extended beyond the cameo itself. A scene cut often affects marketing, distribution, and associated promotions. For a cameo with a $5 million price tag, every second counts. Consider that production budgets are meticulously planned, down to the last frame. Crew hours, lighting setups, post-production costs, and promotional materials all factor into the total. Losing a scene creates a ripple effect. Adjustments must be made elsewhere, costs recalculated, schedules rewritten. Suddenly, what seemed like a simple cameo turns into a logistical and financial headache, a perfect storm that extends well beyond the actor's control. And the irony is profound. A scene designed to reinforce star power, elevate status, and capture audience attention became the very source of tension and scrutiny. Insiders reported that Orley's choice to cut the scene was not made lightly. He weighed the financial cost against the artistic integrity of the production. He understood that a flawed performance could compromise the story and, ultimately, the overall value of the project. And yet, the human element, Meghan's reaction, was unpredictable, uncontainable, and spectacularly dramatic. The meltdown and subsequent cut also highlighted a harsh truth about Hollywood economics. Money doesn't insulate anyone from accountability. A celebrity may have fame, influence, and public adoration, but the rules of the set are unyielding. Cameras don't care about star power, and directors don't compromise artistic vision for reputation alone. Forget a line, and even millions of dollars can vanish in an instant. The $5 million scene wasn't just lost. It was a lesson in the limits of privilege under pressure. The crew's reactions added another layer to the unfolding drama. Assistants scrambled to salvage continuity. Directors of photography adjusted camera angles. Producers debated whether a reshoot was worth the cost. And all the while, Meghan's visible frustration intensified, creating a feedback loop of tension that escalated with every passing minute. Every whisper, every glance, every gesture contributed to the electric atmosphere, a mix of high stakes, human emotion, and professional consequences. Then came the external pressures. Rumors about the cut scene began to circulate even before the day ended. Industry insiders, some present on set, others connected through informal networks, shared snippets of the incident. Social media, always hungry for drama, was poised to amplify even the smallest details. A forgotten line became a symbol of imperfection, a moment magnified beyond its technical significance. And for Meghan, the combination of personal vulnerability, public visibility, and professional consequences created a perfect storm of scrutiny. Have you ever seen a situation where one mistake seems to multiply in significance with every passing moment? That's what happened here. The $5 million wasn't just lost. It became a narrative device, a catalyst for speculation, gossip, and media frenzy. Each reaction, each whisper, each tentative glance was recorded, interpreted, and amplified in ways the actors themselves couldn't control. Money, fame, and human error collided, creating a drama as high stakes as the cameo itself. And yet, even in the midst of chaos, there was a silver lining, or at least a lesson. $5 million may have disappeared from the scene, but the incident revealed the intricate interplay of economics, psychology, and professional standards in Hollywood. It showed how even the most polished celebrities, even the most rehearsed performances, can falter under intense scrutiny. It reminded everyone present, and soon everyone watching, that money may buy opportunity, but it doesn't buy immunity from consequence. As the day progressed, whispers turned into discussions. The cutscene became the focal point of internal debates about reshoots, continuity, and overall production integrity. Studio executives weighed the cost-benefit of reshooting, balancing the financial loss against the potential damage to the project's marketability. Agents and PR teams began crafting strategies to mitigate fallout. And for Meghan, each passing minute reinforced the visibility of the incident, adding layers of pressure and stress that only amplified the original mistake. But just when the story seemed to settle into the familiar pattern of lost money and professional consequence, a new twist emerged. Leaks, rumors, and the inevitable spread of information beyond the studio walls promised to escalate the incident in ways no one had anticipated. The $5 million scene wasn't just gone. It was becoming a symbol of tension, vulnerability, and public scrutiny, a cautionary tale that would soon dominate conversations both on set and around the world. Within hours of the $5 million cameo being cut, the story had already begun to leak. Hollywood thrives on gossip, and when a high-profile celebrity like Meghan Markle is involved, even a minor incident can snowball into a full-blown media frenzy. But this wasn't just a forgotten line or a routine scene cut. This was